Good afternoon. Hi, guys. Good afternoon. Let me know if you are there. So today we might have a bit of a longer session just because it is the day before your exam. Hi, Isa. Hi, Isabel. So we want to go through natural hazards, disaster preparedness, and we're going to also go through some economic activity questions, and I want to do two maps. The only problem is that I want to share my screen. So we might have to switch over to my other channel when it's time to do the maps so that I can bring up the screen where I would have more live, where I will be able to share my screen. Hi, Gia. First time I'm seeing you here. Nice to join us. It's nice to join us. Nice having you here. Which school do you go to? Which area you from? How you all feeling about tomorrow? I know you all had a rough week because some of you all had exams. Well, most of you all, especially geography, we have math. You all had English, maths, and now geography tomorrow. So it's quite a bit for you all to do. Okay, so let us start. Oh, okay, nice. Great. All right, so let us go into natural hazards and disasters. Quick revision because I just want to focus on preparedness and management because that is the area that you all probably wouldn't know as detailed, but you all could always find out or kind of, come up in your head with an answer for the impacts. So let us differentiate between a natural hazard and a natural disaster. What is a natural hazard and what is a disaster? What is the difference between a natural hazard and a disaster? All right, Isabel. That is not a complete answer, right? So you can't give that definition for an exam. If you're hearing noise, that's the dog, right? Anybody else? What is the difference between a natural hazard and a disaster? Right. So very important. A natural hazard is an event, right? Is an event. So what is an event? We also need to know what is an event because sometimes you all don't understand that term event. So a natural hazard is an event that has the potential, right, to cause injury, right? Damage to property and damage to the physical environment. So it is an event that poses a threat, right? And as I think Asa pointed out, it could be climatic or it can be biotic or it can be from the geophysical processes, which we classify as tectonics, right? Plate tectonics. So those hazards that arise from tectonic activity. So if we look at the events will tell you in terms of whether it's a climatic event, whether it's a biological event, whether it is a geophysical event. So let us discuss what are some events. So I like to do it in school. I do event, hazard, and that what would be the potential disaster. So good. So we have what is the natural hazard. It is an event that poses a threat, right, that can potentially cause damage to people, damage to property, damage to the environment, right? Threaten human life, property, and the environment. So not just only life and property. What is the disaster now? What is the disaster? Right. So a disaster is the result, right, when a natural hazard results in loss of life, right, injury, and serious damage to property. So it is not just the threat. So the hazard is a threat, but the disaster is the actual result, right, that leads to death, injury, damage to the environment, property beyond, right, beyond a coping mechanism, beyond the country's coping mechanism, right? So that is what is the disaster. When we have an event, so let us link events to natural hazard because this is how you will be able to identify the impact. So let us start with some climatic events. What are some climatic events? So examples of hazards, we have epidemics, earthquakes, hurricane, volcanic eruption, landslide. Cool. But what is the event that leads to that? Because when they ask you what is the cause or causes of natural hazards, you need to know what is the event that leads to the natural hazard. Everybody following me? So what is an event? Let us say we have epidemics, a cold front. All right. So a cold front, let us use cold front. In this case, is an event. What is the hazard? Yeah. Good, Michaela. Movement of tectonic plates lead to earthquake activity, but not all movement of plates. So you have to be very specific. What are the types of movements that result in? Is it all movements of plates result in tectonic activity, um, earthquake activity? What is the most common? So the most common would be what? So you have to explain that in detail, right? Earthquakes are most common at which plate boundary? Transform. Very good, Dre. Transform. Climate change. If you're using climate change, um, hmm, you see, climate change exacerbate or I shouldn't use the word exacerbate, but increases, let us say, the events. So the events are already naturally occurring, but with climate change, Dre, what happened? It just causes the event to become worse. That can even lead to bigger a bigger threat from the hazard that leads to disasters. So transform plate boundaries and convergent plate boundaries are the main ones, right? You can also have earthquake activities at divergent, but of course it is it is not as frequent as at the transform plate margin where the plates are actually sliding, or that convergent plate boundary where you have the collisions of the plates. Everybody understand that? Isabel, you can use cold front, but what would accompany cold front in terms of the event? Because the cold front is an atmospheric system. What would accompany it? So let us do, for example, let's take flooding. What is the event? What is the event? Flooding. Heavy rainfall. Good. So heavy rainfall, right? And where there's a lack of interception by trees, right, can lead to flooding. Very good. Now let us do volcanic eruptions. And be specific when you're talking about the plate boundaries in your exam if you're explaining. Storm, hurricanes, very good, Isa. Yes, storms and hurricane also leads to flooding. I want you now to tell me volcanic eruptions. Volcanic eruption, what is the event? Convergent plate boundaries. When plate collide, you have subduction taking place, that where the plates melt into the mantle or the asthenosphere, and it resurfaces through cracks opening the trenches, and it creates volcanoes. You can also have volcanoes at what other plate boundary? Is it only convergent? Divergent plate boundaries. So when plates are also moving away, that results in seafloor spreading, which also causes magma from within the mantle to rise on the Earth's surface, cool, harden, and you have volcanoes being formed, right? Good. So that is volcanoes. We have earthquake, we have flooding, hurricanes as a hazard. What is the event that leads to hurricane? Do you all know? What is the event? Hurricanes. Ooh, Sahara dust. No, Michaela, no, but Sahara dust is, it can cause what we call hygroscopic nuclei, which is like dust particles in the air, right? It helps to produce rainfall, but that is not it. Warm temper, very good, Lavanya. Warm temperatures over the air masses moving over the ocean, warm temperature, right, where it evaporates. Very good, Zandal. Warm seas, excellent. Yeah. So, Isa, it is the warm temperatures, right? Warm temperature, warm ocean temperatures, right? When the air mass is traveling over it, it results in evaporation. And that, of course, fuels the hurricanes. Somebody stated epidemics. So epidemics would be biological under the classification of biological. So if we categorize climatic would be, you can have hurricanes. Um, well, we don't have tornadoes here, but tornadoes in terms of geophysical or plate tectonics, you would have volcanoes, earthquakes, and tsunamis. What is the event that leads to tsunamis? Anybody? The event that leads to tsunamis. What is the event that leads to a tsunami? Come on. Earthquakes, very good. Underwater earthquakes, right? Earthquakes that occur underwater, very good. Or earthquakes that are very close to the coast, that are very high or large magnitude, would generate tsunamis. Everybody understand that? Very good. So I want us to look at the biological, and biological could be epidemics. It can also be things like diseases in plants. It can also be forest fires, right? So what do you think results in epidemics? So if we take, for example, like this COVID-19 pandemic, what, in terms of COVID-19, what would you say is the event that results in this? Anybody have an idea? Or if you look at the bird flu or any of those things. Okay, bacteria mutation, good. Millibugs can be one, Lavanya. Yes, millibugs is actually like this little white disease that plants carry, and it basically multiplies very quickly. Bacterial spread of a virus or a disease, pathogens, very good. Harmful bacteria, good, and it's then spread by human interaction that results. That is why the only way to protect us, they are saying, to social distance and to sanitize so that we eliminate or minimize the bacteria. I think Lavanya asked me to go through hurricanes. So the formation of hurricanes, remember, they can ask you to explain any any one of the any one of the actual hazards, any hazard they can ask you to explain, right? So you have to know that inside out. So what are hurricanes? If you are to give me a definition of hurricanes, what are hurricanes? Isabel, you're asking me microorganism with respect to diseases. What are hurricanes? So, Lavanya, I'm going through this for you. Hurricanes. It is possible in terms of microorganisms. It depends on what bacteria it is, if it's a plant or if it's the organism itself that carries the bacteria. But microorganisms are also very good, right? They are good in breaking down organic matter. So, right. So for hurricanes, you need to know the actual wind speed that classify it as a hurricane. So you need to say it is a low pressure system that carries sustained winds of approximately 119 kilometers per hour, right? So they develop over warm oceans and seas, right? And they actually begin as a tropical wave. So a hurricane, the first step in a hurricane is that, of course, it evaporates, right? Atmospheric moisture over the ocean from this warm ocean and sea, and 119 kilometers per hour. Yes, Dre, that is correct. 119 kilometers per hour in terms of sustained winds, right? And of course, it begins as a tropical wave. So if you ever listen to a weather forecaster, or when we have a disturbance, they often say we have a tropical disturbance. Why they say a disturbance? Because it's not immediately classified as a hurricane. It begins as a tropical wave, and then as the the system increases in strength in terms of the wind speed, right? Then they classify it as a tropical storm, right? And then, of course, a tropical depression. And then it goes to hurricane one, hurricane two. And of course, it changes with every change in strength. You have a change in, of course, the low pressure system and the miles per hour in terms of the sustained winds. Everybody following that? And in order for hurricanes to develop, the sea surface temperatures must be at least 27 degrees Celsius, so warm oceans, right? So when it is actually at a hurricane level, it is because it sustained winds of 119 kilometers per hour. Everybody understand that? Hi, Nasania. Hi. Is that clear for you all now? All right, good. So when you all are explaining each one, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, hurricane, flooding, whatever they listed on the syllabus, the hazard, you need to link it to the event in your explanation. And also when you're given the impacts. So when you say, of course, what is the impacts? Let's list some impacts of volcanic eruption, or describe impacts of a volcanic eruption. You can't just say lava flows. You have to describe how lava flows, right, is a hazard, right? So you can say when a volcano erupts, lava flows can bury anything in its path or has the potential to flow for over long distances and can bury houses, potentially cover houses, cover burn people, etc. When you also use the example of ash falls, you need to say describe exactly how it leads to the potential destruction. So the weight of the ash on the collecting on the roof of the houses, right? When it becomes wet, it becomes heavy and it can cause roofs to collapse. Everybody understand this? Miss how acid smoke form? I can see the chemicals from the lab. Acid rain, right? Acid rain. Potentially, it can lead to acid rains because of all the sulfur dioxide, all of the, right, from the actual gas emissions from the actual eruption. I hope you all understand that. So just don't state. If you state, you will not get the marks. You need to describe and you need to explain. When you say explain, you give reasons for the cause of respiratory issues. What leads to that, Lavanya? So you all understand what I'm saying? What leads to that? So it is ash falls, right? Can lead to ash in the atmosphere, right? High amounts of ash in the atmosphere can lead to respiratory issues, and people with asthma can also be affected, right? So link it to the actual effect. Now we go into what we call the disaster management cycle. Do you all remember what is in the disaster management cycle? What is the disaster management cycle? So for your exam, right, they definitely going to ask you about this disaster management cycle, because this has to do with the actual preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. So the disaster management cycle, it's a cycle that is split into four processes. And you have what we call pre-hazard, and then we have what is post-disaster. So pre-hazard is where you want to mitigate, or you want to, when we say mitigate, we mean to reduce or lessen the impacts of the hazard, right? Or you want to be, if you cannot lessen the impact, you want to, the word that we use in geography is adapt. And when you adapt, it means you prepare for the hazard. So people who are living in floodplains, okay, they may not be able to mitigate the fact that they're going to get flood, but they can prepare for it. How? By getting sandbags, organizing their home in such a way where they probably lift certain areas so that the flood doesn't come into the house and damage all of the appliances, etc. So you have pre-hazard, and then you have post-disaster. And the post-disaster would be the response and the recovery. Very good. They can set up floodgates. Hi, hi, Sheik. I hope I pronounced that right. I never saw you before. You can say hi, where you from? Good. So mitigation, it is also, it can be, yes, it can be long-term strategies, but it is really the strategies, right, that is implemented to reduce or to lessen the impacts of the hazard that can potentially lead to a disaster. You understand that? Very good. Levying. But levying will be in terms of government mitigation measures. Most of the times, people don't raise embankments or levees um, by around their homes, but in terms of government, yes, that can be so. Right? Preparedness, of course, is adapting to the hazard. How can you live with this hazard? What are some of the things you can do to prepare if you know that this hazard is not going to um, be eliminated? So, for example, people in St. Vincent who live with the active volcano Soufriere, and that threat really cannot be removed. They have to, they have to come up with measures to prepare in case that volcanic eruption take place. And we see how much chaos took place when that happened, because people are sometimes not prepared. How many of you all have a disaster preparedness plan at home? So God forbid, um, we have a really bad earthquake that caused, you know, that cause a lot of shaking and can potentially cause your house to collapse and stuff like that. What do you have a preparedness plan at home? Your preparedness plan it also involves an emergency plan. An emergency plan is how do you evacuate, how do you get out of the home, where is your muster point, where do people assemble, where the important numbers, who do you contact, where are the shelters. All of that is contained within. No, Nasanya, mitigation is not the same thing as preparedness. Mitigation is lessening it is strategies or actions. So actions, strategies, measures that can be put in place to reduce or lessen the impact of the natural hazards so that it does not become a disaster. Do you understand that? So for example, earthquakes, a mitigation measure would be to use the X design. You all know the earthquake proof building. So you use the X design that would prevent the actual building from collapsing and lead it to sway, or you also use the foundations of buildings that shock absorb that absorbs the shock waves and cause the building to more sway and not actually shake and fracture, right? Implementing building codes in the country. So in our Caribbean, we use the it is a QR code or cubic code. The cubic code, right? I believe it's a cubic code, is what we implement in the Caribbean for for building design in terms of earthquakes and so forth. Whereas preparedness is how can you live with the potential threat of this hazard happening? How will you prepare for it? Because it is you cannot remove the threat totally. In other words, how can you become prepared? Everybody understand that? So for example, hurricanes, you will design your roof with that steep V-like structure as opposed to a flat roof where a hurricane can come and then tear it all off. So you use the steepness of the V. You all understand the difference between mitigation now and preparedness, Nasania? You get that? No walking on sunshine. Mitigation is before. Mitigation is before. It is not after the hazard. You're trying to do something, take a precaution before it happens. So, for example, let us say you are going to ride a bike, right? No, we didn't do soil formation. We just mentioned it, but I can try to touch on it. Let us look at this example. Say you are learning to ride a bike, but we all know when you're learning to ride a bike, you're going to fall, right? It's obvious. Most people, unless you were really good at balancing, you don't. You see, with mitigation, you are preparing for the threat of the hazardry. Yes, yes. So building code is a strategy because they implement that so that, of course, it will minimize, meaning lessen the impacts of when an earthquake come. Your building wouldn't all collapse like in Haiti, right? With what happened. Now your building subscribes to a code, so therefore it is built more sturdy. You all know the central bank in Port of Spain, those buildings are earthquake designed. They have the X proof on the outside. So if you never see it, Google it and find a picture of it, right? So that is mitigation is what we call you it can also it is more engineering, right? So you implement certain measures before. So engineering of the buildings, probably dredging of drains, widening of drains. Dre, you feel as you alone on this live? That's why I said to Google it. Google the image of the central bank. You all should know central bank because that is our main financial institution in the country, right? They sway, yes, they absorb the shock. They have these nice, flexible shock absorbent foundations that actually allows the building to sway. So you all need to remember these things because they can ask you what are some mitigation measures, right, for the hazard. So remember that. So I was saying that mitigation, and the example I was going to use was riding a bike. You know you're going to fall, but what do your parents do to mitigate or try to protect you in case you fall? What are some of the things they would do? Very good, Carrie. The one in Barbados was Swain. Which building is that? Training wheels. A helmet. Very good. Because I ain't talking about training wheels. I'm talking about when you're learning to ride like a mountain bike or something. Helmet, knee pads, elbow elbow and knee pads. Everybody understand now? Who didn't understand mitigation, so that understand now? And now to be prepared now for the hazard, right? Hope and pedal. Oh my gosh. All right. So for the for the preparedness part of it now that you have your mitigation measures in place, you become prepared, right? Um, so the people that are in the building, let us say the central bank building, right? You actually try to educate them, have an evacuation plan for the building. So you all will realize when you get older, when you start working, a plaster. A plaster is not a mitigation, that's a preparedness measure. After you fall down, you have your little plaster, right? Very good, Calicia. So your parents and people who work, I don't know, in school, you all should have evacuation drills. No, no. Recovery in terms of the plaster. Okay, so preparedness, what preparedness is, it is exactly what it says. It is being, I don't want to use the word prepare, but becoming ready, right? Or being ready, right? In terms of the hazard taking place, right? One second. Let me pull up an actual definition for you. Do you all know today is World Chocolate Day? I am eating chocolate with coffee because I need to stay up to do this class. So preparedness, Nasanya, is the preparations that you implement before the hazard takes place. You understand that? What? Olin never did an evacuation drill in school? So if something was to happen, like the big earthquake we had, do you all remember that earthquake that took place? They don't show you all where your master point is in school. How many of you all do evacuation drills in school? But what madness are you hearing here? So Dre, what going to happen? Are they going to run out like crazy people? Right. Very good, Cameron. Right. So Nasania, preparedness is the preparations that you make or the preparations that you implement before the natural hazard takes place. You understand that? Preparedness involves becoming educated because preparedness is usually more on an individual level, whereas mitigation would also involve individuals can mitigate and also governments, right? In terms of governments, they would also implement mitigation measures generally for the country. So things like engineering certain buildings. They will not, they will give you measuring distances. Dre, what will happen if you get an earthquake during the exam? What you going to do? What are you going to do? Tell me about that. So some people experience evacuation drills. So evacuation drills comes under preparedness. Everybody understand that? It's a factor that the French mission, like you wouldn't buy a canned food before a hurricane, or that is mitigation. Dre, canned food comes under preparedness. So when a hurricane, let us say a hurricane, let me try and explain this to you all in terms of a real life situation. So let us use something simple. In Trinidad and Tobago, we know certain areas are flood prone. So some of the things that they might do to mitigate it, they might do dredging of the rivers. Let's say government do dredging of the rivers. They would also do widening of the rivers, right? In terms of mitigation, in terms of lessening the impact, those are some of the things they can do, right? For you as an individual, you might build your homes on stilts, meaning off the ground higher. However, in terms of preparedness now, okay, you know it's rainy season. Hey, I know my house going to flood. What you gonna do? You going to make sure that you have sandbags, which is also a measure to mitigate, right? But it comes under preparedness in this case because you use sandbags at the moment. You just don't put out sandbags. Yeah. You also make sure that you secure your important documents that would probably get flooded in white plastic bins or waterproof bins. Very good, Isabel. You see, they widen the drain barrier so now it doesn't flood. So that is mitigation, right? Mitigation is like not going build a building on sand when there is rock way before disaster. Okay, right? So canned foods, getting canned foods, securing your important documents, that is what we call preparedness. For example, for a hurricane, we know when a hurricane is going to come, you cannot go out and go and buy food. It is like COVID-19 right now, right? You would try to not to limit your exposure to the groceries. So you buy a lot of groceries at home. So you minimize your exposure of going out. Right? So preparedness, it is it is it is the preparations that you make for the hazard. Okay, it's no problem. Nice having you. Hurricanes, you can use after preparedness, it is the response. So the response is what happens directly after. So let me I'm putting a I'm putting an actual definition of it in the chat for you. So preparedness is exactly no problem. So it is a response. Yes. So one response could be, as you just said, if you know your house is flooding so badly or the hurricane is destroying your home, you will move to a shelter. It is like when Sufre was erupting, you all remember the government said everybody in red and orange zone, time to move, 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 move. And they sent the cruise ship, they sent different um, security personnel to remove them quickly out of the area. So that is what what I mean by moving you out to an actual shelter. Everybody understand that? So the response could also be you need to have on hand, right? Some people would come, they would send first responders if you are stranded, like the fire ambulance, and these people they would come and they would people who are maroon, meaning they cannot move, they will go into the area and make sure that they evacuate them from the area that is actually being impacted. Yes. All right. So that is response. Response will also mean, in terms of earthquakes, because you are educated, you know how to respond for an earthquake. So when an earthquake takes place, what do you do? Run. Nasania, where you running? The first thing shouldn't be run. In Trinidad and Tobago, we do public education campaign. What do they tell you? The first thing shouldn't be to run to an open area, right? If it if you see that joking, right? If you know that it actually is going to the building might collapse, then you can evacuate to a muster point where it is, of course, safe. You're not going to run to an area where you have electricity poles and big trees, because what can happen is that can fall, right? And you're going to have devastating impact. So you actually an open area away from buildings, away from trees, right? Dre was shocked. A lot of people were shocked, right? So my friend, you want to hear a joke? You want to hear a joke? When it is the earthquake took place, right? She went under the bed. I was like, what? She went under the bed. I was like, how you even get under the bed, right? But I'm saying if something fell from the ceiling and fall on the bed is not sturdy enough unless it was an iron bed, it would have caved in, right? So you go under sturdy things like iron top tables, right? Not any old shaky table, right? You wanted to see it. Um, I was very calm. I went under my door frame, but remember now they're saying the door frame may not be the safest place. In Trinidad, they tell you to, of course, also when you go under the table to do like this, shield yourself. That is the duck cover, hold on and shield your head so that if anything is falling, it will not fall on you. So responding is also being able to know how to use the education that you have, right? The mattress is protection. well, the mattress, that's a good idea, because the mattress, it wouldn't cave in like that unless the bed is, if it's wood, then you're in trouble. You all understand that? All right, next thing now, that is response. Recovery. What is recovery? Linen, a table, a strong doorway. You see the bed? Make sure it's a sturdy iron frame bed, right? Drop, cover, hold on. We just went through that. Drop, cover, hold on. That is response. With respect to earthquake, with volcanic eruption. Oh, Jazzy. Oh, good afternoon. You're late to the party. So, with volcanic eruptions, what is the response? They would have something called oh my God, a hazard, map, right? That will differentiate areas that are of risk, high risk, low risk, moderate risk. So hazard maps would differentiate the different areas and the different zones in the country. So when people are in these zones, they tend to evacuate. Remember that. Recovery, very good, is the actions that are taken to rebuild. So after you have destruction, you have loss, you have damage to the environment, it is now the recovery phase is where you rebuild and you try to now, get back to some sort of normal functions in the society. So you want to basically rebuild all the buildings that were broken down and restore electricity, water, those type of things. Everybody understand that? So let me put some information on y'all. If you're on the live for the first time, make sure that you subscribe, please. All of this comes under preparedness measures. So I am putting some of them there so that you can use them, right? Let me just put that there for you. Oh gosh, I am sorry that maths was kind of hard for some of you. I heard so. Some maths was a bit difficult. But don't worry, I'm sure you all will do well. You all are working hard. Many of you all are working very hard. At least I am proud of you all for geography. So I'm putting the information in the chat for recovery response so you all can take it down. And then we're going to go now into ODPM. What is ODPM in terms of their role in our disaster preparedness? So the role of the ODPM. So I know we have some students from Jamaica and Barbados here. So here's what. Tell me, thank you, my birthday is tomorrow, the day of the exam. The ODPM is to educate the public about, right, the natural hazards, how to become prepared, what are some mitigation measures that they can implement. So that is one of their role. What is another role? So if you are from Barbados, remember you need to know what is the Barbados agency called. If you are from Jamaica, you need to know what is the Jamaican agency called. Remember that. So for Trinidad and Tobago, they focus on a multi-hazard approach which considers disaster management cycle. Very good, Michaela. So in essence, the role of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management, which is ODPM for Trinidad and Tobago, and TEMA, they deal with all of the key aspect of the disaster management cycle. So they deal with mitigation, they deal with preparedness, they're going to be dealing with the response and the aid in recovery as well, right? So I want you all to tell me what are some exact things. So we have Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management, ODPM, and then we have TEMA. So I'm trying to just put this for you all now in the chat so that you all can get it. We're gonna do Sedema, but we have to do the national body first, Dre, and then we can move to the regional body. And of course, Sedema involves the entire Caribbean region, right? So in terms of, if I was born for geo, probably so. Probably so. I really like geography. Anybody want to do anything in the environmental field? After the environmental field is where it is right now, you know. You all see all these disasters happening around the world. You all heard about the pipeline that burst in the Gulf? Did you all hear about that? The Gulf of Mexico? Just like when they had that the last um oil spill in the Gulf. I don't know if you all heard about that show, Deepwater Horizon. And then Japan had a really crazy mud flows. Dre, that is cool. That's cool. You don't need to do it in Form 6, but it's a really good field. A lot of opportunities. Yes, a lot of marine life. It was crazy, right? A lot of crazy things going on in terms of the environmental field, and they're going to need a lot more experts in the field. So everybody, you all got the disaster. Let us look at ODPM now. So the ODPM, I will give you all my Zoom, my Google Classroom code so that you all can get some of the information after. So the role of the Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Office of the Disaster Preparedness and Management, one is for public education, right? So they deal with a lot of the public education. Right, so some of the functions, they employ qualified staff to handle natural disasters, right? They implement early warning systems for all hazards. They train citizens in communities to manage disasters, right? They collaborate with the seismic research units to educate the public on emergency measures to be taken during tectonic activities, so things like earthquakes and volcanoes. They also collaborate with telecommunication services, which would be like your phone and internet. That is what telecommunication is in terms of disaster, to provide us with technology. that do not depend on electricity so that they can still send out warnings and updates to the general public. They also collaborate with media in terms of radio, television, and um, the radio, television, and social media to update the public about measures to be taken when a disaster strike. And they also interact with Sedema, Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, right, for support in times of disaster. And then they coordinate disaster preparedness, response, and recovery efforts. Do you all have all of that? So Nasania, ODPEM for Jamaica. Let me tell you who Jamaica is. Jamaica is, I have it here. This is a good site. This particular teacher is a Jamaican teacher, and he has some notes there. He has some good notes for the Jamaican site. Marine biologist, yes, in terms of field, excellent field. I actually, I am a trained rescue diver, trained in scientific diving. So I do a lot of marine work as well. I studied fishes, parrot fishes, and acanthurids in their role of maintaining reef health in the face of climate change. So yes, that is a good field. Cameron, they put out the fire. I think they said 4 hours. They got it under control, but I'm sure they're going to have to do a lot of preparing. You're welcome, Calicia. Did you all get the rules for the disaster management? Let me give you all my Google Classroom code. I just call it out because I can't type out all of it. So you all will get the Google Classroom code, and you could get the rules of the Office Disaster Preparedness and Management. You all get that right? I put up the actual information there for it. So you just take a little review of it. Do you all want me to go it over one more time? Geophysics, yes, that's a really good field too. You learn about a lot of seismic and reading seismic, which is some really awesome stuff. Do you all need me to go over the roles and functions of the ODPM one time? And or you all want me to give you all the actual, I will give you all the link, the Google Classroom code too. Let me give you all the code so that you all could pull it up. So go to the classroom now. I'm giving you all the code. Go to the classroom and see if you find it. It is under, what is it called? It's called natural hazards, right? And you would see natural hazards and responses. So go to it and pull up the notes. That way it is easier for us to go through it. Everybody saw the code there? Let me know when you pull it up. All right. So the role of the ODPM, 1, so it employs staff to handle natural disasters effectively. 2, they implement early warning systems for natural hazards and disasters. So what are early warning systems? I don't know if you all ever heard about this guy. He actually He is the one who operates Trinidad and Tobago weather station or something like that. You all ever heard about that Facebook or Instagram page? It is called Trinidad and Tobago Weather Station. Natural Hazard and Responses, Jazzy. Good, Calicia. What are early warning systems? Good. You're welcome, no problems. What are early warning systems, you? Early warning systems. So, in Trinidad and Tobago, before a hazard takes place, what an early warning system is, it is actually what it says. It gives you advance warning. So, yes, not just news, but they send out bulletins before. So, I don't know if you all are interested, but if you're interested in like me, I like to follow up on natural hazards. I just find it's very exciting. So I would go on NOAA website, I would go on Odpm website, and they give us alerts. So these alerts before, very good. Nasania systems that are put in place to alert people before the disaster, very good. They will update us and tell us, okay, we are at code yellow right now for flood risk. Then they will tell us we are at code orange, which means that is greater risk. And of course, when you reach red, that's greatest. So early warning systems are the systems that is put in place to alert us before the hazard takes place, right? Not necessarily the disaster, Nasanya, but the hazard. So ODPM has that role. But there was this young man, like this generation, like you all are like really brilliant, right? Like you all are like, I don't know if you all know this, but you all have a different mindset with things. So this guy, he was studying abroad and he found that when he wanted information for Trinidad, that everything was so late. And he decided that he was going to solve the problem. And he created essentially what is ODPM, but he created his own page, which was called the Trinidad and Tobago Weather Station. And his information is like, before you even, I don't even know who updates him, but he gets his information like in real time. And that is how it's supposed to be with hazards. It's supposed to be real time. And he is actually doing most of now the ODPM work. I don't know why they just don't employ him. But he has a big page. He was on news, he was in the media about what he's doing. So that is another agency, but of course he is not the government agency, it's ODPM, right? So another thing that the ODPM does, another role that they have, would be to train citizens in communities to manage disasters. So we know that, remember, we had a huge flooding some time ago across the entire country, and Caroni and these places in the east was flooded. So they, of course, going to train communities that are prone to these to hazards and disasters to manage this, right? Also, they're gonna identify the shelters for you so that you know where to evacuate. They collaborate with the seismic research unit, which is based in Trinidad, right, to update us on seismic activities in the Caribbean. So that has to do with earthquakes, volcanoes, and tsunamis. They collaborate with telecommunication services, which would be like telephone, internet, those devices, so that they provide us with updates through technology that doesn't depend on electricity, because electricity may go, and of course media, and then of course with the regional body Sedema. So now let us look at the role of Sedema, and everybody need to know this one, right? So Sedema was established in 1991, and it was called Sedera. So before it was called Sedema, it is now called Sedera, meaning it is what Sedera stands for. Y'all got the information to pull it up? Did you get the information to pull it up? Sedera. So the Sedera is Caribbean Disaster Emergency Response Agency, right? And it is the headquarters was established in Barbados, and it was formed by the heads of governments conference of CARICOM, so all CARICOM countries. And the main role of Sedema is basically to assist in the management of natural disasters that plague the Caribbean region in terms of hurricanes, earthquakes, and volcanoes. So some of their functions are providing information on disasters that are likely to happen. So they also do early warning systems. They also coordinate the relief. When we have a disaster, they try to get, of course, other countries to help with relief in the country that was affected. And then they provide assistance after to rebuild the actual country. Right? So they mobilize and coordinate disaster relief, mitigate the immediate consequences of the disaster, right? They provide reliable information and comprehensive information on the disasters. They encourage disaster loss reduction. So that is their main role. They encourage disaster loss through mitigation at a national and regional level. And they establish and enhance the maintenance of emergency disaster and response capabilities. So that is the role of it. Thank you, Listra. Everybody understand that? Is that good? Is Sidara okay for y'all? Y'all just have to learn off the functions and the role. Is that okay? All right, so Calicia, I think, wanted me to look at soil formation or soil. What is soil? So in my classroom as well, I have some little videos on soil that will help you, and then the soil profile. How is soil formed? What is soil? Subduction zone. No. This has nothing to do with subduction, is plate tectonics. So what is soil? What is soil? All right, so remember this. I want you all to remember this. When you think of soil, always think of a weathered rock. So to get soil, soil comes from rock. So think about a parent rock. So when we say parent rock, we mean in the original rock, right? And that rock is weathered and is eroded. And when it becomes weathered and eroded, it's broken up into smaller pieces, right? And that it becomes soil. And then, of course, soil also contains minerals, living organisms as well. So what are some of the agents that actually breaks down the parent material to become soil? So we know weathering. So what are some of the agents of weathering and erosion that helps with breaking down of soil? Rain, right? Wind and rain, good. Caudal, mixture of weathered material, organic material, yes. Biotic weathering by organisms. So we establish weathering, we establish rain, we establish water. So also chemical interactions, right, from the organisms, right, living organisms in the rock. Temperature. So rain and wind, yes, but temperature in terms of sunshine, gravity, in terms of on a slope, of course, it's going to cause the weathering, when it's weathered, to be eroded or move. Everybody understand that? So that is how soil is basically formed, right? And then you have what we call a simple soil profile, right? And the one that we know, or that is common, is called lattice soils, a lattice soil profile, and it consists of your normal A, B, and C horizons. So when you cut through uh, a piece of land, right, and you see the exposure of the soil, you would see that there's differences in the different layers, right? So the differences, you have the O, you have the A, the B, the C, right? So what is the O layer? That is the leaf layer, or the top layer. That is the actual layer that is rich in organic matter, organic content. Y'all just give me 1 second. Let me see if I can turn on the light. The humus layer. Very good. The humus layer. That is excellent. Right? And that is where you have leaf litter, organisms in the soil that breaks down and give you that rich material, that rich dark layer. Then you have the A, which we say is the surface horizon, because it's right below the O. And then you have B, which is the subsoil. And then you have C, right? The subsoil is where, of course, you get roots and stuff also growing deeper down into the layers. Then you have the C, which is the substrate. And then you have the bedrock layer, which is the actual parent material, rock. And that is what is actually broken down into the substrate and continues to break down or become weathered. And you have the soil profile. Everybody get that? I want to finish when we get to answer some of these questions. So anything else? I was just asked, I wanted to do natural hazards and disasters today. That is what we did, and I wanted to do some questions on those topics. It gives you the soil color as well when it breaks down. Yes? So I'm not finishing right now. I have some time. Rewind. You feel this is a tape? Rewind. What did you miss, Dre? Dre, I think after you will go back and find it and go back. So we just talk about the formation of soil. And I said, when you have soil, I didn't go to map work yet. I actually wanted to do two maps, but we're going to have to switch to my other channel for us to do the map. Yes, Lavanya. See is where you have the weathering of that parent material. So soils, Dre, is the formation. It forms from the weathering and the erosion of the parent material or the bedrock, right? And we said there are agents of erosion and weathering, right? So the weathering in terms of chemical, physical, biological, and then you have your wind, water, gravity, temperature. All of those things results or helps to break down the rock further, right? In terms of the soil profile, I was just going through each layer. So we were saying the O is the organic layer, right? So here's what to do, right? Let me, in the Google Classroom that I gave you all, there are some short videos that would actually go through the soil profile and the actual definition of soil Nasanya, right? Because I want to go through other stuff with you all. So, Dre, in terms of horizon, O is the top, it is the top layer. Well, that is the top layer where you have organic matter or leaf litter that is fallen, dead organism that is rich and would eventually break down or decay, and they form the humus layer. Hi, Gasha, the humus layer. Below that O, you just go in order of your alphabet. So it is O, and then you have A. A would be your surface layer, and that is slightly lighter in color. It's not as dark or as black as the organic matter because that is where it actually decays. So below that, it is a lighter color. Then you have the subsoil, and you also have roots growing in that layer. It's a lighter, well, like a dark brown. You have then the substrate, which is the C. So then you have B, then you have C, which is broken down, right, from the or weathered from the bedrock, which is the last layer, right, is the bedrock layer or the parent material. Is that better, Dre? So go to the Google Classroom where you can actually pull up the R. So the bedrock layer, we call that the R horizon. R. So it is O, A, B, C, and R. So not D. O, A, B, C, R. Bedrock, right? And that is where you have that parent material breaking down. Very good. Everybody cool with that? You all want me to go through some questions now? So let us go through the questions that I have that I compiled. I think the questions up in the Google Classroom. So go to it, go in the Google Classroom and retrieve. It is under broad topics, questions, broad topic past papers 2021. So pull up that for me if you can. I wonder if I put up the maps here, boy. If I put up the maps, that will be so easy. Gosh, I'm going to put up some maps in the classroom so you all will be able to get that. You all want to do some map work now? Do you all want to do the map work now or the past papers questions? Map work. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put the maps in the Google Classroom now. Go download it and we will go to the exam papers for it. You all understand what I'm saying? So I'm not going to do the ones that we did. We didn't Point Michelle and Barbados. So we're going to run through two maps. The two maps we're going to do is Monique. It's called Monique. Pull up Monique here for me in terms of the past paper. I hope you all have the past papers. I think the past papers link is there as well. Monique. So look for the question for me, Monique and Mango Creek. Mango Creek, pull up the years for me. And it will come under map work. See if you all can get it now. Okay, Jancy, we will do some questions after, but you know how to answer the last section of the maps? Those 6 marks question. No, we're not doing the other channel. I'm just going to stay on here and we're going to do, I send the maps for you all. So pull up the maps and let us do the questions. So go to the Google Classroom. I just posted, I think Calistia posted the code after. She posted the code again. Let me type it up again. Can I pin this? Can I pin this? I'm not too sure. That's the code. Pull up the maps. And let's run through the questions. So pull up Mango Creek. Mango Creek is that question. And I want us to do the last set of questions. So let me see which year is Monique. Right, so Mango Creek, Belize, y'all, it's 2011. Everybody have the map? You're ready? 2011. 2011 is the question paper, and the map is Mango Creek. Mango Creek, Belize, 2011 map. All right, once you're getting it, that's good. You all could go under past papers and you should be able to open the past paper booklet to get the question too. So under past papers in the Google Classroom, past papers and CXC report, go under past papers, open it, and we do Mango Creek. So let us go. All right, good. You're ready then. So you see this question here? The first one, grid reference. Anybody having problem with that? That is I don't want to stick. So yes, I feel like those you all will practice. You all know how to read eastings and northings, right? Eastings are your vertical lines and northings are the horizontal lines that increase towards the north. Eastings increase towards the east, right? When you are reading it, you always read it in the shape of an L. So easting is an L, vertical number before the horizontal number. So you always say the vertical before the horizontal. What I want us to do is focus on the descriptive part of the map, which usually gives you more. So identify 4 drainage. So you have to list 2 services in the village of Independence. One or 2 surfaces in the village of Independence. You all can find Independence on the map. 2 services listed for me. You might need to zoom a little bit. One or 2 services, there are quite a few in Independence, the village. School, healthcare center. Good. The other question is now, very good. So everybody got that correct. So there you have a school, a police station, a healthcare center. Any of those would be correct. The next question on the map is, you have this cross profile that they give you as an insert, right? I want you all to scroll down, and when they give you an insert, you have to label. So what you do, you put it along the cross-section line. So if they say along northern 29, you find the horizontal line that is marked off 29. Then you go to easting 47. You mark off 47 to 52. And then you look along that line and then you label the features as is. So sometimes they may give you a river. So you put an arrow, or they may put the arrow for you and you label it river. Everybody understanding what I'm saying? It is 2011, the color. Oh, Nasania, you can't use YouTube and another app at the same time. Oh no. Do y'all want me to start a Zoom? For a Zoom might be easier. What do y'all think? Y'all want to come off of this and go into Zoom? so that I can pull up the map for those who can't see it. All right, so let me send the Zoom link. Let me create a Zoom and we'll do a Zoom to do this. Before you leave, make sure you like the video, share the live, share the site, subscribe. Subscribe and share. See if you can use that Zoom. You're seeing it there? 778-210-334. 5X1JVU. I'm going to come off the live now. You don't have to be in the school, daughter of God. This is not a school. There's no school here. It's for everybody. No, we're going to come off the stream, the YouTube, and just move to Zoom so that everybody could see. Renee, first time. Oh my, you're late to the party. That's okay. So anybody can join. Anybody who wants to come to the Google Classroom, come on, let's go. We're going to go over to Zoom. So I'm going to end this and start Zoom. Share it again. I think I can pin it. Let me leave it on for a little bit, so that you all can see it. All right, so I'm going to end this and go over to Zoom, right? And change my location. Everybody got it? Look, the password there. The password is JV. Right, so people getting in. Right, I'm getting everybody coming into the room. So let me just come off of the live. Anybody need it again? The password on the live. I'm going to cut off that now. Hello. Okay, gonna cut off now.